Two puppies were shaking, starving, and too small to survive. But they didn't run from danger. Instead, they chased a stranger down a highway, begging for help. What he discovered broke everyone's heart and left the entire town in tears. The sun was just beginning its descent, casting golden rays across the long stretch of empty highway. The only sound was the low hum of a dusty pickup truck weaving through the countryside. Behind the wheel sat James, a quiet man in his early 60s. Once a busy mechanic, now just a drifter, with a thermos of black coffee and nowhere to be. He wasn't running from anything, just tired of staying in one place. He wasn't expecting anything unusual that day. The road was straight and silent, flanked by tall grass, swaying in the breeze. But as he rounded a bend near an old cornfield, something odd made him slow down. In the middle of the road stood two tiny German shepherd puppies, both standing upright like little soldiers, paws raised in a silent, desperate plea. James blinked. Were they trained? Lost? He looked around. No sign of another person or a mother dog. Just two small figures, trembling but determined, their eyes locked with his, wide and glistening, not with fear but with urgency. He pulled over, engine still running. The moment he opened the door, the puppies scampered toward him but didn't bark or bite. They paused at his boots, then took a few slow steps back, turning to glance over their shoulders as if to say, "Follow us." James hesitated. This wasn't in his plan, but something deep, ancient, instinctual told him this wasn't just a random encounter. It was a call for help. James followed, cautiously, watching the two puppies trot ahead, stopping every few feet to make sure he was still behind. It was like they knew the urgency of what they were doing. They weren't playful or distracted like most pups. These two had a purpose. Their little bodies shook with exhaustion, but their eyes never wavered. They led him off the road, through a gap in the fence and into a thicket of dried weeds. James ducked under low branches, his boots crunching against the cracked earth. The late afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows that made everything feel eerily quiet. Suddenly, one of the puppies barked, just once. James looked ahead and saw a small clearing. Lying in the center was an old cardboard box. The puppies rushed to it and pawed at the sides, whining and circling. James approached slowly, heart pounding. As he bent down, he pulled the flaps apart and froze. Inside were three more puppies, barely breathing, curled up together like fallen leaves. Their ribs were showing, their fur was matted, and their eyes, those haunting, pleading eyes, barely opened. James swallowed hard. It hit him like a punch to the chest. These two puppies had crossed a highway and begged a stranger just to lead him back here to save their family. He knelt beside the box, hands trembling. He couldn't understand how anyone could abandon them like this. But now that they'd found him, he wouldn't walk away. James didn't waste a second. He gently lifted the three frail puppies out of the box, cradling them against his flannel shirt. They were feather light, bones poking through their patchy fur. The two older siblings danced nervously at his feet, nudging his legs as if urging him to move faster. He ran back toward the road, heart thuching in sync with his boots. The heat shimmered off the asphalt, and James flagged down. The first car he saw, a battered pickup, driven by a woman in gardening gloves. She slammed the brakes, took one look at the puppies, and threw open the door. Together, they rushed to the nearest animal hospital 20 minutes away. Every bump in the road made James tighten his grip. The weakest pup gave a faint whimper, barely audible, and James found himself whispering, "Hold on, little one, please." When they arrived, the vet texts moved like lightning. The puppies were placed in tiny oxygen cribs, IVs, inserted into trembling legs. James stood in the corner, hands clenched, watching machines beep and lights blink. The vet, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Keller, finally came over. "It's good you brought them when you did," she said. "They were severely dehydrated, but there's a chance. Thanks to you." James nodded, too choked up to speak. His eyes drifted to the two puppies who had saved their siblings. They sat huddled together, watching the door. They hadn't just found help. They'd found hope. While the vet team fought to stabilize the puppies, James stepped outside to breathe. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in gold and lavender. He stared down the highway they'd come from, mind spinning. Who would leave helpless babies like that out in the open under the brutal sun? He wasn't the type to meddle, but this time something didn't sit right. The next morning, Dr. Keller called him back to the clinic. "They made it through the night," she said, smiling. "But there's something else you should see." She handed him a small object sealed in a plastic bag. A GPS microchip tag pulled from one of the pups. "Wait, they were chipped?" James asked, stunned. Dr. Keller nodded grimly. "Registered to a backyard breeder, flagged last year for multiple violations." James felt his stomach drop. These puppies weren't just dumped. They were discarded. Stock from an illegal breeder. Sick, unsellable, and left to die. Fueled by outrage, James contacted local authorities. When animal control arrived, they examined the chip records and traced it back to a property just 5 miles away. What they found there horrified them. More sick puppies, cages stacked in darkness, and frightened eyes peering through metal bars. The man behind it all was arrested on the spot. The operation was shut down that day, and it all started because 2 brave little puppies had begged for help on the side of the road, not for themselves, but to save the rest. Weeks passed, and the once fragile puppies began to thrive. Their fur grew back, thick and soft. Their eyes brightened with trust, and their little legs finally found the strength to run, play, and leap into open arms. The vet staff affectionately nicknamed them the Brave 5. James visited daily, at first just to check in, but over time the bond deepened. The 2 puppies who had first approached him never left his side. They followed him around the clinic, tails wagging, eyes always watching. When one nuzzled into his chest during a nap in the waiting room, something clicked. He filed the paperwork the next day. "The moment I saw them," he told Dr. Keller, "I think they chose me." The adoption day was filled with laughter, tears, and joy. James loaded the 2 pups now, named Scout and Willow, into his truck, and they drove home to a quiet farm with open fields and sunshine. It was the life every dog deserved. As for the others, each found a loving home through the rescue network sparked by James' report, and the busted breeder case. It made headlines, inspiring hundreds to speak out against animal cruelty and illegal puppy mills. But the moment that stayed in everyone's heart was how two tiny lives stood on the side of a highway, risking everything to help their own. And in doing so, they didn't just save their siblings. They changed the world one bark at a time. If this story moved you even half as much as it moved us, don't let it end here. Hit that like button to honor Scout and Willow's bravery. Subscribe for more true stories that restore your faith in humanity and animals. And whatever you do, never ignore a cry for help. It could change everything.